over the last few days since Cube World Beta has gone live to alpha members, there has been a lot of talk. Good, bad, the ugly. But I'm here to summarize some of the more questionable and heated points of discussion with the new Cube World systems, we'll put it that way. I've heard your feedback, by the way, so I'll keep this nice and concise. I have some points written out. Thank you to those with those feedback. So let's summarize things. I have about 10 points here that I want to touch. Things I feel like can be improved and things I feel like are okay, but maybe need some tweaking. So first off, not knowing where or how to start. If this game is launching on Steam to a brand new audience, a very big audience, especially when there isn't a starting village icon or maybe a few quest icons to start off like there was in the alpha, I feel like that is pretty not new player friendly. Having no direction or any guide on where or how to progress, I think is something that can be tweaked, and I think fairly easily. A little tooltip when you start your character, or maybe a little brief guide with a little cute video showing you how to progress the game, how to evolve, how to get new gear, how to find a village, how to use the map, how to use your tools. I think that would be very valuable, especially to new players. A very heated topic is not having a skill tree built into the game, or at least accessible as a menu like it was in the alpha. I don't know about this one so much, being that all your skills are actually unlocked right from the get-go. So if you're a mage, you can use all your skills and your ultimate the very second you spawn into the world. You don't need those points anymore. You don't need to add this point or that point to be able to use something like a hang glider, for example, where you can just find the hang glider and use it. We'll get to that later. Not being able to choose your starting class specific specialization. Ultimately, let's say you're again a mage. When you spawn in, you are automatically defaulted as a fire mage, but you may want to try the water mage, which means you have to go and find a village, traverse there, hopefully not die 400 times to everything, and then find the guild master and then change it. I think that's a very, very simple fix that can be done right when you're creating your character, and it simply asks you, do you want to be specialization class number 1 or specialization class number 2? That should be something that all players have a choice when making their new character. Now, those are the stuff for new players, mostly. Let's really get into the nitty-gritty here. Character progression. It is very different from the alpha, and frankly, it's very different from traditional RPGs in that there is no experience. Yes, I'm sure you've heard, I'm sure you've read. If you're watching this video, you probably have seen all the conversations and Reddit threads and Steam pitchforks thrown at Wollay, but there's no experience in the new Cube World. Now, this isn't necessarily at its core a bad thing, but it needs to have strong character growth to offset the fact that there's no experience growth, right? Hear me out. Now, not having the experience means that you have immediate access to all-powerful gear from the get-go, being you can go find a mob, get a kill, get some gear, kill the next mob, get some gear, and all of a sudden you start steamrolling, so you can get great gear early on. It is harder because you do have to kind of rely on killing stronger and stronger mobs, and we'll get to that later. Being that mobs, once you start getting geared up, the weak mobs, like let's say equivalent or equal to your level or lesser, become irrelevant, because as a mage with 4-star quality weapons and armor, I'm not going to go and fight a white quality enemy because there's nothing to gain except for a bit of gold. So it does devalue the mobs as soon as the player overlevels them. That's why I do think character progression needs to be tweaked a bit. Let's get into the next point, which is the leveling system. This ties very much into, again, character progression, being that your main way to level up your character is by collecting artifacts in your zone. Artifacts are the way to directly level up your character. These are permanent character ability buffs. Let's make this clear. They're ability buffs, not damage or stat buffs. There's no faster firing of your weapon or utilization of your tools. There's no like less mana consumed. It is purely abilities. So climbing, swimming, hang gliding, pet riding, etc. This is a problem only because of the next point, is that there is so much time and energy invested to gear up to be able to acquire these artifacts. These artifacts may take you 4 or 5 hours to build up enough gear quality, let's say epic and legendary gear, to take on the hardest challenges to acquire these artifacts. So again, all this time and energy is spent to get these artifacts, to get small ability buffs, but then is immediately devalued the moment you walk into another zone or another biome. That's because although the character ability stats stay with you, you don't have those key items anymore. So for example, let's say you have a hang glider, you found an artifact, it gives you 2%, which by the way is so minimal, but let's say it gives you 2% buff to hang gliding. When you walk into another zone, you actually lose those key items. You have to reacquire those key items, and that is a huge misstep, I feel. Having those key items like the glider and the boat, the climbing boots, I think those need to not be zone locked. The reacquiring of them, that is definitely, in my opinion, not a good change. Other things like there's a bit of spoilers, the spirit bell or the flute, those I feel like can be applicable in each biome depending on what is needed. I think that's fine. That makes the quest system valuable of sorts. But I think glider, boat, and maybe the climbing boots should probably be defaulted. Once you find them, they're there forever on your character. I don't know if that's as much of a controversial topic as a pretty unanimously agreed upon topic, but I digress. The problem with acquiring all this gear to get these artifacts to then move different zones is a bit of a waste of time and energy, because these items become immediately weak when you enter another zone. They don't retain the same legendary or epic quality that they would have in another zone unless they are a plus item. So literally the item will have a plus sign, which means instead of being zone limited or zone restricted, it is kingdom bound, which is more like, I don't even know if there's a specific number, but let's just call it 6 biomes, 6 adjacent biomes. Once you get past that, then the gear becomes essentially useless again. But for all intents and purposes, if you don't have plus items, you can't really go into the next biome feeling like you're geared up. You have to restart again, and that's tough. The flip side of that is if you spend all this time grinding these plus items, and let's say you have a full inventory, you're fully geared out, every item is a plus item, that only extends to 2 or 3 biomes, which then means you have to, you can then steamroll the next couple of biomes, but that means you have to then reacquire plus items again in biomes and then do it again and again. And so the end game ultimately becomes farming plus items, not so much farming the artifacts. The artifacts are irrelevant because you can get plus items that extend again past the normal kingdom or sort of normal biome range, and from anything. You can just farm an easy boss or an easy area or easy arena, and you don't have to get an artifact for it. The artifact, technically you can be level 1 and have traversed 10,000 kilometers as long as you get all the gear that you need to conquer the area. So I think ultimately at its core, to summarize everything, is artifacts need to have a more substantial buff to each character. If experience is not going to be re-implemented into Cube World, and that is a design choice, obviously it's intentional, then the artifacts have to play a bigger core, or have to have a bigger core value to character progression, so that it is valuable to conquer each biome, acquire good gear, get the artifact, acquire plus items, and then take on the next biome. Even if you don't have plus items, you still have some buffs. Maybe it's you have a bit more tempo, a little bit more crit, more HP by default. Your fire. No, I was gonna say your fire rate. That's tempo. Any of these actual stats, player stats that would impact combat and questing and your ability to move. Oh, also mobility needs to be changed. Having to acquire reins to ride a pet, plus the pet food, that's a problem. I think that needs to be modified. But all of that being said is that if the artifact becomes more powerful, more valuable, then you don't really need the experience because your ultimate goal is to gear up, get the artifact, increase your player stats, increase your character to be stronger so that the next biome is not easier, it just becomes easier to level up. And that's where the leveling system needs to be tweaked, in my opinion. I think that is of the opinion of many of you guys. I would love to hear if you have any other suggestions on how to improve character progression, or, and all that being said, without adding experience into the game. I would love to hear your thoughts in the comment section below. Thank you so much for the support as always. If you're new and want to see more Cube World content or enjoy these discussions, hit the subscribe button. YouTube loves when you hit the like button for those algorithms, so I would appreciate that. And aside from that, thank you so much. I really enjoy Cube World. I hope you do too. I want this game to be as great as possible, and I think constructive criticism and good positive feedback is the best way that we can create and help to tailor this game to be the best version of Cube World that has ever existed. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.